Wow, what a day. Are you exhausted or energized or both? Both? Well, I'm energized. I thought it was an incredible day. And I saw connections going on all over the place. For those of you who don't know me, by the way, I'm Doug Baker. I'm the Provost and Executive Vice President. And I wanted to thank all of you for coming to this. And I wanted to thank a few people who pulled this together. And Priscilla's going to have the last word today after the panel, but thank you, Priscilla, for pulling all of this together. And she had a cast that helped her: Kevin Ketchy, Patty Heath, Jenna Pettick, Debbie Gray, Melissa Hughesby, Kristen Derian, Brenda Helbling, the Outreach and Engagement Council. Is the Outreach and Engagement Council here? Could all of you stand up who are in the Outreach and Engagement Council? Thank you. You guys have been working hard a long time, and some of you are veterans from the Goal 3 team. That's a code word here, the Outreach and Engagement Goal. And we've come a long ways in the last 5 years. So thank you for all of your hard work for this and preceding years. And also thank you to all the facilitators for the sessions that we've had today. The order that we're going to go through here is that we're going to go down the panel, and we're each going to have a few observations from the day and closing thoughts of wisdom. And then I've got a few summary thoughts I had from my observations across all of the sessions today. And then we're going to ask Priscilla to close us out with her thoughts on where we go from here.
We learn the secret handshake along the way?
Yes, we'll learn the secret handshake. No worries. E for engagement. That's good. So let's start with Nancy, and we'll go right down the line. Nancy, words of wisdom.
Now that I have to even see you in the light out there, came in out of the dark. I've noticed since I've been involved with the engagement, what I would call now movement, about 1996 there was an initial conference, outreach conference, University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I was there as an observer and didn't realize that I would be embroiled in it for more than a decade. And what I've discovered is this movement has gone through phases, and that has been reflected as phases on campuses as well. So what I've noticed that first happens is there's some kind of critical event that happens on a campus that helps move the engagement agenda along. And so in your instance, it may have been senior leadership, it may have been some kind of activity that happened. Some campuses, it's a huge grant where they're forced to do engagement work, a variety of different things. But there is that kind of critical piece. And then what we see is there's this fight with definitions. So what's engagement? What's engaged scholarship? What's service? What's this? What's that? There's that whole phase of defining what it is. Then there's the next phase of finding and holding up some models of what it's supposed to look like. So what we heard this morning about the Indian Reservation being a model that people should look at and emulate. Then we start to see levers and structures put into place in a university, whether it's the engagement council or goals or whatever it might be, but there's certain things that start to happen. And then after that, what we see are the early wins and the early adopters. And let me suggest, since you're still here, you're probably the early adopters who have had some early wins or will have them soon, if you haven't already. We see that as kind of the next phase in the movement. And then what we see happen is a little bit of dissonance or conflict in the movement, where people are trying to figure out, well, where I was isn't quite where I'm expected to be, and I'm a little confused about that. And so you may feel that, or you may see some of your partners and coworkers going through that. And then after that dissonance, what we see is a resetting of what actually is expected and what life is like, and then a setting and settling, and then it becomes habit. And so I would suggest that from what I'm observing, you're probably about the dissonance or early adopter stage right now, and getting ready to get into what that habit is going to be. And some of the reasons I say that, I think that you're really going in the right direction from what I've seen at all the different universities I've worked with on this. You've got a lot to be proud of, especially what's in the room, the council, the new office, all of the people engaged in a variety of things. It's really nice, as I said earlier, to be in a place where extension is valued and seen as a partner rather than something that's tolerated on a campus. And I hope that you believe that about engagement as well, that engagement is not just something that you do once you have tenure. Engagement is something you do because it's a passion and a calling and the right thing to do for your discipline and your scholarship. I'd like to give you a couple of challenges to think about as you get to the reset and set and habit stages. One is put in place even more structures and levers that will help catalyze the engagement movement on this campus. One might be to send a team of people to the Academy for Engagement for University Leaders. There now is an Engagement Academy for University faculty that's being started. If those aren't your thing, start something here on campus. University of New Hampshire did that. They started their own Engagement Academy on campus and now have 10% of all faculty have been through it and are committed to engagement work. May or may not be something you're interested in. Some other challenges: start an engagement seminar series, start an engagement publication series, start all of those kinds of things that parallel the other things that you see on campus for research and teaching. And also start to create some new learning networks. The way I got to meet Ken at Cornell was through the Participatory Action Research Network. And those kinds of things are very helpful to bring together like minds around things, and so you don't feel isolated. And then just a couple of tips to make sure you remember to keep in place. A lot of support and wraparound support for the people who are doing this work who feel like they may be out there testing and pushing some new things. Make sure that you tie in your version of engagement in Idaho to your history and your values. Don't try to take somebody else's way of doing it and laying it over the top. Make sure that you meet families and faculty and communities where they're at, not where you think they should be. So if you're going to be working with partners in other faculty members, what are they interested in? What are their values? And then how can you work with those? Same things with communities. And then finally, make sure that as a university you continue to provide tools and resources necessary to do the work rather than just talking about it. And I see that you're already far past that. So congratulations on a great movement, and I hope that your provost talks to mine soon about this.
Just a couple of quick things. One is how impressed I am is that the administration stayed the whole day. I mean, it's a real indication of the kind of commitment they have to this work. President, provost, and a very significant number of deans and associate deans were here throughout the entire day. Director of Extension here all day as well. And I think listening eloquently to the both hopes, aspirations, and concerns of the faculty. So I think it shows a strong institutional commitment to this work. One of the things I really enjoyed about the sessions that we had a chance to engage in was the seriousness that faculty were giving to what is this going to look like in my department, in my unit, and enough confidence in the quality of the work that you do and your thoughtfulness about it to realize that a variety of formulations are going to probably end up getting institutionalized. Not everybody's promotion and tenure procedures, policies, and criteria are going to look the same, and that's not only okay, but that's the way it should be. And we should have enough confidence that we're not just slavishly applying page number counts to other people's work and allowing ourselves to feel confident that it reflects real scholarship. So I think that was really quite impressive. I think a couple of things along the lines of, maybe next steps is I think what you've managed to do in a very short period of time through an extraordinary amount of hard work is nationally noteworthy. And one of the things you ought to think about is what are the areas that you're contributing most significantly to? I think the relationship between Extension and the departments is significant enough that to think about hosting a national meeting, exploring one or the other thorny pieces of this work to highlight the university's contribution and ongoing activity. The other thing I think about these events as sort of being a form of like marriage encounter. Father O'Brien invites the family to go away to a retreat house, eat bad German food cooked by nuns, and discuss the state of the family. The thing that doesn't quite work in this regard is that we're talking about engagement, and the partners that we engage with are not yet represented here. And so it's sort of dangerous. I went on one of these marriage encounters facilitated by my parish priest, and the 40 men sat around and said, I think the whole marriage thing is actually working out quite well. We sort of created the new manifesto for the new man and new family, and then coming back to my all-female household and announcing the new principles for transformative family life. So there's a bit of a danger going too far regarding how well the partnership is doing when it's only us. It's only the church of the academy. And there's been such a history of undervaluing the extraordinary contribution of organic intellectuals in community-based organizations who make so many of the projects we've heard discussed today really extraordinary, that we have to find a way to incorporate them in this discussion and dialogue and honor and reflect the contribution that they're making. I think the other thing is I believe that a lot of key foundation, government, and corporate representatives would be quite impressed by what's going on here and would want to be a part of this. So I think moving forward is to also find a way in which we can feature in some way the contribution, the thoughts, the hopes of those partners as well, because we're in a very resource-lean environment, and we're going to have to go beyond our comfort zone to think about who our new partners can be moving forward. Our tuition funds, our state support, federal funds are just not going to get us to where we want to be in order to contribute to community building in the way that we want to. So I think those are a couple things I would think about, and just I want to say from as an outsider's point of view, it's an incredibly impressive effort that you've put together and have managed to sustain. And I love the deep respect that appears to be present among department faculty and extension. It's such a rare thing. I think hats off to the Extension Service for creating that kind of space and for this administration to realize that it's an incredible asset for the university moving forward. And that appears to be a clear understanding that they have. So thanks for inviting me, and I hope you return the cows to the side yard of the Best Western. It's my hope for Idaho.
I was going to ask Ken if he was still married, but I won't.
I was when I left home.
I feel like I'm in a spot here where most everything that's important to say has been said, but we haven't all said it yet, so let me restate a couple of things and share my perceptions with you. Again, my compliments, as my colleagues have, to the quality of this dialogue today. The interaction has just been outstanding, and I've made a lot of notes to myself to take home ideas that I've garnered from you all, and that's what makes a conference like this outstanding, in my opinion. I guess one thought that I have come away with is that if you all came here expecting to get answers to some of the challenges and the questions that you're facing, I hope you don't go away too disappointed, because some of these things, this is a work in progress, and at least I don't feel like I know all the answers to these some of these knotty questions, but I do have some sense of confidence that if you continue these kinds of discussions, continue to have a gathering of some nature like this, probably on an annual basis, and continue to keep nudging these ideas along and forward and sort of kick the peanut down the street a little bit every day if you can, you make good progress. And you all are clearly the heavy lifters, or you wouldn't still be here. And it strikes me that you have achieved a tipping point at the University of Idaho and a critical mass. You all are going to make this happen. And it's, as has already been indicated, the senior leadership is behind it. Without that, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't have made the progress you already have. But that kind of presidential and provostial leadership will, in fact, bring people around. And you don't need them all, but you need a third or a half, and you're about, I think, about to that point. So if I could offer any sort of elements of advice, I guess they would be kind of the following items. One, as Ken indicated, resources are very limited. They are everywhere. Look for points of leverage. Who can you get to help pay at least part of what you want to do, or all of it, and try to help leverage resources. That's actually part of the old Kellogg Foundation's report on engaged institutions, is resource partnerships. And the experience I think that we've had is that it works. You can find resource partners, and if you can't, then maybe the priority shifts a bit. Metrics are important, but I wouldn't let indecision or inability to decide what the metrics ought to be to stop you from doing good things. A lot of times good stories, testimonials, anecdotes are as effective, but certainly in the public mindset, as metrics can be. So keep track of the good stories, tell some good stories. Build the partnerships and networks. As I indicated in one of the sessions, I think one of the real assets that institutions like this bring to the public is a convening power. When the provost or the president of the university or university leadership in general invites community leaders or others to come dialogue about a topic, as often as not they show up, or someone does. And that's a horsepower that you need to capitalize on and leverage carefully. But it is a very important asset that I think is undervalued by most of us in academia. In terms of strategic goals, someone asked about in one of the earlier sessions about what our goals were. I think if you take a step back, at least as I have, and looked at Purdue University's engagement goals, and they'll be different for other institutions, but clearly the overriding theme of our effort has been how do we help strengthen Indiana economically. We're doing a lot of other things as well, but that is probably the strongest thread of our engagement effort. So we have tried to form strong partnerships with those entities in the state that have leverage in economic development. Where are the tools to help make good things happen in that regard, and how can we link and partner with them to achieve some of those desirable outcomes? But that doesn't exclude doing other good things, and just because it doesn't happen to be one of our strategic emphases in engagement, if there are partners who have resources to help us do things, and then we have expertise to bring to the table, I don't like to say no very often, but we do, when we have resources to invest, we are focusing them in those elements that we can tie to economic growth and development. Lastly, I think there's still some infrastructure improvements that you all can make. They may not take a lot of resources to do, but I find as I work with and talk with people at other universities, one of the biggest challenges we have infrastructure-wise in academia is that, as I said earlier, we think in semesters, not in days and weeks, and we need to improve our capacity and ability to do things if we're going to work with business and industry and with some of the agencies that we work with. You got to be able to do things on their timeline, and that's a challenge. It's a challenge at all institutions. It's one that we've tried to address but haven't fully mastered or conquered yet. But again, I join my colleagues in congratulating you on all of the great things that you've been doing. The fact that you all brought a group like this together and talk about these issues and challenges for a day is truly remarkable. And congratulations to all of you, and I've enjoyed very much the opportunity to join these two great people and to visit the University of Idaho. It's my first visit here. I've enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Well, thanks to all three panel members. I was going to ask them to give you a round of applause, but they did it spontaneously, so thank you. Are there any burning questions for our panelists before we, Priscilla and I, anyway, conclude our comments? Anybody have a hot question? Okay. Last chance. Okay. Let me give you a few of my observations. And when I started writing these down earlier today, I started thinking about the arc of this week and last week. And for those of you who were on campus last week, we had the Sustainability Conference, which was a pretty cool thing. And our plenary speaker was Bill McKibben, who talked about carbon in the atmosphere and changing the global climate as we know it. Yeah, he's a really upbeat guy. We're all screwed and we're all going to die. And it's going to get worse after that. And what role does higher education have in that? I mean, there are serious problems across the world. You know, what role does higher education have in playing that? And he challenged us. And I got to thinking about that conference that had us think about climate change issues and all the other pieces that go with it, economic change, poverty, the crush of modernity against antiquity, our institutions fracturing and trying to readjust and change. Then I thought about the Bora Symposium that we've had this week as well. And the Bora Symposium speakers talked to us about serious social injustice issues in Palestine and in Africa. Wow, there's another example of big changes that we need to look at a global scale. And so we've got these huge global problems going on: poverty, climate change, conflict, etc. You know, that can be so daunting you don't know what to do. You know, how do you take it on? And earlier today, I thought I heard hints about how to do that. And that was through the unit called community. That we can work in communities and transform communities and show the country and the world how a higher education institution can become a vital problem-solving organization that transforms students and transforms communities and transforms itself through that combination of pieces. So I actually kind of saw the last 2 weeks fitting together, and then this weekend is the Finding the Center conference. So how do you find that middle ground, and how do you talk civilly about difficult issues and solve them at a community level maybe? And how do we show the world how to do that? So I'm actually pretty encouraged by the arc of what I've heard. We got big problems, but anytime it's a problem, it's an opportunity. I mean, we say that, but it's true. I mean, what a great environment. The work Laura and Steve and others did in Plummer Worley, you could say a 70% dropout rate in high school for those kids, and poverty, and a community that didn't know where it was going is a problem, or it's one hell of an opportunity. And it was. You know, our students that go work in the K-12 system and help mentor and tutor those students have transformational learning experiences. It's a huge opportunity for those students. They're different people after they work there. So we can do that as an organization. I think it's just going to be transformational for us. So we may be that link pin between those global issues and community issues, and then bridge between them with solutions. And I think we can be a national model. And the engagement piece is really the engagement of our research and the engagement of our transformational teaching in those communities. It's not a laminated piece on top. And the conversation we had around engagement 5 years ago was more about how do you effectively laminate engagement onto whatever you're doing, rather than how do you make it integrated. I think that's where we're headed. So as a land-grant, we have huge assets. We have brilliant students that really care about these kinds of issues. How many of you attended the student panel we had up on this stage? So every time I see students like that, you know, I get teary-eyed listening to them talk about the transformational experiences they have in communities. It's powerful. It's a powerful pedagogy. You listen to them and then you think, can I go back and lecture for 16 weeks in my classroom? It's like, oh God, no, I mean, it's not right. Now they need to know stuff, but my gosh, the learning experiences that they've had and how that's going to change the arc of their lives, and some of them talked about that, that's powerful stuff. So I think students are a great catalyst, and we're blessed with great students that want to do this kind of work. And our students came from high schools and junior highs. Many of them were in 4-H. So I know a lot of you in here are in 4-H. Well, you've been doing this pedagogy for 100 years. And sending them to us, and you've shown it works. It took us 100 years to figure it out, but we got it. And our students expect it. So we almost have a moral obligation to do it, and we have a competitive advantage to attract them here. So I'm really excited about that pipeline, and I listened to many of our 4-H faculty about that, and I think there's a lot of wisdom there. And when faculty and staff engage in these activities, they're transformed by it. I think when Steve and Laura talked, you could feel the passion. I mean, it's an important way to live your life, to make those kinds of changes in a community and show the university or the state or the country or the world how to do it. So my hat is off to them, and I'm glad that they were one of the 5 finalists for the McGraw Award. Very well deserved. So we've got the students, we've got the faculty and staff, we got plenty of issues to work on in the state and beyond. We have local knowledge and skills in all of our counties from all of you who work in extension and other faculty and staff, so that's good. We've got a lot of experience with Horizons and building sustainable communities, and that gives us a leg up. We know how to go into communities and make long-lasting, meaningful relationships. And we've got a statewide system that's very differentiated. I mean, we're geographically differentiated. We have people everywhere, and we're disciplinarily differentiated. We have expertise in lots of areas, but we're not as integrated as we ought to be. You need both. You need the differentiation and integration. And I see today as one of those places where we're thinking about how do we integrate better. And I think the President's announcement about the Office of Community Partnerships is a step in that direction. And we've been trying to do this work, and we're getting closer. We have the Student Volunteerism Center that the Associated Students run. We have the Service Learning Center. We have Jack's work on economic development through the Office of Research and Economic Development. We have extension, of course. We have department chairs who care, and faculty who care, and staff who care, and students who care. But we haven't integrated as well as we could. So I agree with Nancy saying that we're on this developmental cycle, and we're kind of at a point of inflection today, I think, as we pull these pieces together. So, you know, why do we do all this? I guess I said why. You know, it enhances our research and our learning, and it makes it relevant. And if we're not relevant, then the continuing decline in our resources will continue. And I mean, why would the state give us money if we weren't relevant? If we were just going through the motions and stamping diplomas on students' foreheads and off they went, and we didn't do anything with them. We didn't transform them. We didn't transform society. This is a vehicle to do it. We have a lot of work in front of us, but a lot of opportunities. And I think as we become relevant through this work, we're going to get a lot of state support, a lot of private support, a lot of alumni support. It's the right thing to do. So we need to overcome our internal barriers, and I heard in a number of sessions about those suggestions that overcoming the barriers can be done through clear visions, clear goals, cultural transformation, structural transformation, shifts in the reward systems. We've been doing a lot of that. We're down the path, but we have more to go. One of the ideas I think Ken had was, you know, rewriting the tenure and promotion expectations within departments. We've changed the forms, we've changed policy, we've talked about it, but until you get down at the molar level and really say, okay, what are we really trying to do here as a department or a cross-disciplinary unit, it's not going to change. That change is hard, though, because there are cosmopolitan and local forces. Cosmopolitan, disciplinary, I have to be really narrow and deep and publish in my top journals in my field. So there's a reward structure there and a sense of mobility, traditionally a mobility sense within discipline that I got to have 47 publications and $4 million in grants or whatever it is in my discipline. But then we've also got all these problems, and none of them are monodisciplinary. So, you know, how do you act locally, work in your communities, use those as laboratories for teaching and scholarship, but still do it within your discipline? And Nancy's answer was, do them together. Do them together. And you can figure out how to do it. It's a new model, though, and we're struggling to figure out how to do it. But we can, through rewards and through development of faculty and chairs and staff, through getting more resources, through fundraising, recruiting new faculty. I see junior faculty seem to have this in their blood. So I see a generational shift there, and then we need to have it in our position description so the expectations are clear. So, back to McKibben for a second. We can't keep doing what we're doing and expect this negative climate cycle, economic cycle, conflict cycle, whatever it is, to be broken. We've got to change what we're doing. And I see this university making that tip and change. And part of it is going to be these partnerships, and that's why I'm really excited. Priscilla, this is your cue to come up. Subtle, wasn't it? For the Office of Partnerships to continue this acceleration of our activities in these areas. So Priscilla, I'd like you to have the last word today.
Thank you. No, I'm pretty much almost the same height if I stand up. So, so thank you so much for your time today. I know you're all really busy, and it's just, I'm so happy to see so many people here for this closing session. You've really exceeded my expectations, so thanks for your time. I'm glad that Doug mentioned the Office of Service Learning and internships, because I really think that is one of the unsung resources today. We didn't hear enough about that. Supporting that work really needs to be a high priority for any of this work to succeed. So Adrian, and Jim Eakins, thanks for your work, and we'll be partners, and we don't even have to go to counseling, I don't think, or beyond that. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about the logistics, the nuts and bolts of the Office of Community Partnerships, so that you have something more than an abstract idea going out of here. What the office will be, the idea is to really raise the visibility of community university partnerships, raise the visibility, the funding for that kind of work, and the internal support that we provide for that kind of work. A second objective is to focus and integrate our work with communities so that we're not all going off willy-nilly working with communities. It's in our own little separate silos, that we need to be talking to each other and working together so that we can increase the impact we have by coordinating our work. I see the office as really a bridge builder between extension and academic faculty. I think those of you in extension have been listening to me trying to build these bridges now for about 4 or 5 years. We've come a very, very long way, and it's because of your willingness to hang in there with us. I know we've tried these university-wide meetings before, and they haven't worked, but I think this one reflects an amazing success. So that's the kind of work, those are the bridges that we want to build on an individual level with all of you. And my door is always open to both extension and academic faculty who want to work together. I'm a facilitator, and I hope that you know by now I'm not an empire builder. I want to facilitate and add value to the work you do, and that's really what the Office of Community Partnerships is about. Nuts and bolts stuff. The office will be located in two places. I'll remain in Boise, U of I Boise. It will be my home base, and supporting me is Jenna Pettick. She's a half-time administrative support person. Here in Moscow is Debbie Gray, who will be working full-time, and Christy Darian, who is part-time. So that's what we have to work with from the beginning. Debbie Gray is full-time on Horizons, the Horizons project now, and she'll be doing Horizons full-time until the end of the summer. So we're taking a phased approach to the work that the office is taking on, knowing that our resources, our staffing is pretty thin in the beginning, and hope to grow it over time. Because as we've heard today, there's a lot of work to be done. So in terms of that phased approach, we would like to start with finding opportunities for engaged student learning and engaged scholarship in the Horizons communities in North Central and North Idaho. There's a map out in the hallway of where the Horizons communities are. Those are tiny communities. I'm looking at Chad Cheney, who works in one of them. These are small communities that are high poverty, a lot of need, but also a lot of opportunity for the University of Idaho to connect. But our resources, we have obviously the most faculty up here in North Central and North Idaho, so it's most realistic for us to start with helping find more engaged student learning opportunities and engaged scholarship opportunities in those communities in this part of the state. And over time, as we can build a way of working and the resources to work more with the Horizons communities in South Central, Southeast, and Eastern Idaho, that would be the next phase of our work. Then as resources permit, we want to develop community partnerships in other areas that we choose really strategically. And the ones that we've identified for the first year of work are in the local food systems area and engaging with the state's Latino communities. These are both opportunities that are really clear from since I've been located in southern Idaho. It's not only an opportunity, but it's that Boise State is ready to do outreach in those two areas, and yet we're really the ones certainly that have the expertise, especially in food systems. So these are two areas that we're seeking funding to expand our engaged student learning and engaged scholarship. And then over time, that we would of course like to work in other subject areas as we have the resources to do, and that's especially the faculty. We need to make the connections with academic faculty who can work in other areas of need in the state. So that's the phased approach that we plan to take. I need your input, all of you, on what your resources are, what your interests are, what your concerns are, as this Office of Community Partnerships moves forward. And as I said, my door is open. This is about adding value to the work that you're already doing, both in the area of engaged student learning and engaged scholarship. So if you have any questions about the Office of Community Partnerships, I'm happy to answer them now, but contact me anytime after the conference. Also, very happy to meet with you in wherever you are around the state, Moscow included. So any questions about that before we close? Sure, Marianne. Good. So Marianne, in case you didn't hear her comment, she noted that with Better Together, with our work with Coeur d'Alene tribal communities, housing was identified as a community priority, and so that's where the bioregional planning students started to work. That's what the community wanted. That was the priority they identified, and so the bioregional planning program responded to that. And I think that's really how we need to work. That really is consistent with some of what we talked about with Ken Reardon this morning, that the needs are driven by the state and the communities, and we as a university need to respond to that. And that's the idea, is to find the expertise within the university to respond to those needs identified by the communities. Any other questions? I didn't see where. Oh, hi, Laura. Oh, Laura. Yeah.
And one of the concerns that we have is that, you can have communities coming in and say, well, we want to work on this area, but you may come out there and find they don't have a critical mass, or they really
Yes.
haven't gone through the process to do that. How is the university going to sustain this capacity building effort in order to make sure that it's a real partnership?
Good. So Laura's question is, I think, it's kind of, there's two sides to it. How do we sustain the leadership development and capacity building work that we had with that incredibly generous funding for the Horizons program, which is now gone? And so then what does that mean for working with communities that don't have that leadership and broad-based capacity? So the first answer to that is the provost in particular has been very insistent that the Office of Community Partnerships be strategic about the communities with which we work. And what that means to me is we cannot go into a community unless there is that critical leadership with which we can partner. And at the moment, we don't have the funds to do that capacity building. But it was such a key lesson from Better Together. And I think that we've seen in communities that we've been working with that don't have that leadership capacity, our impact is much less. So we have to, I don't have an easy answer to how we're going to sustain that capacity building capability. And I think extension is going to be key to that. And that's an issue that Charlotte and I and all of you faculty need to think about how we continue building that capacity. If we work with a dysfunctional community, we're not going to get very far. I mean, we can't save the world. So that's a critical issue. We do have 49 small towns with which that have been through the Horizons program. So that's a pretty rich pool of communities with leadership capacity. It doesn't address the urban. I mean, Horizons is such a rural program, and Trudy Anderson down in Boise says you'll never get the political support you need for this kind of work if you don't start working in the city's urban areas. So that's another challenge that we face. Adrian. That's great. Good. Thank you, Adrian. That's a really good point. So we have time for one more question or comment, and then we'll just close. Oh, gosh, there are so many. Put your hands up just back there.
Okay, I just have a general question here. As a faculty member, I think one challenge for me to do outreach program is the financial support, because those small communities are in remote areas, and
Yes.
they expect free service. But to be there to support their needs, to satisfy their needs, it's cost money. So I just wonder, is any mechanism along the university level so we can have some financial service? We can charge them some minimal fee to cover the cost for the service? Is that possible?
Good. What I kept hearing from at least two of our speakers was that we can expect communities to put up some of that, the financial, to ante up some support for that so that we can make that happen. But it's going to have to go both ways. Faculty are going to have to be willing to leave North Central Idaho to do some of this work. But then we have to find the financial support to make it possible. Does that address your question? I know it's not easy. And another resource to think about, though, is that we do have our regional centers in U of I Boise and U of I Idaho Falls, both of which have graduate programs and faculty who are able to work in that region of the state. And I think that is a way under, it's an undeveloped resource, but it's also, there are faculty who are working now, engaging in those regions of the state that we're not documenting and we're not capturing what's going on there. So, good question. Thank you. It's 4:30. I don't. One of my guiding goals, I never keep people past the end of the meeting. So, thank you so much for all your time and your investment today. It's just been wonderful. Very rewarding.